Hi, I'm Sarah, and you're watching The Zen of Painting with Pasco County Libraries. So today we're going to paint a winter scene with watercolors. So I've mounted my watercolor paper on a board with masking tape, and if you have any questions about how to do that, we have a separate video on that. So I'm going to start by wetting my entire canvas down with my biggest brush and some clean water. You'll see I use a recycled salsa jar to keep my water in. I am a big fan of using what you have handy instead of going out and buying special tools to do art with. There is such abundance all around us when it comes to what we need. Sometimes it's just a matter of thinking about things a little bit differently. And seeing what we have, what resources we already have access to. So painting doesn't have to be expensive, doesn't have to be hard, especially watercolors. The only thing that I would say to make sure that you do spend a little bit of money on is the paper. Focus. I'm going to look at it from the side to make sure I've got enough water on there, but not too much. And I think we're good. So now I'm going to put that away. So I'm going to stick with my large brush here. And I've actually prepared a little bit of paint on some palettes. I'm using the tubes of paint, tube watercolor, and then I just mix the colors that I want, let it dry, and then when I'm ready to use it, I can just re-wet it. So for this scene, we're gonna start with a blue sky at the top. We are going to go incredibly light with this. So actually, I'll grab my napkin, keep it handy. If I feel like I have too much, yeah, that's definitely too much paint on my brush. I'm gonna just dab that off and thin it out a little bit more. So very light touch here, very, very light touch. Winter scenes are almost black and white, almost gray. And go with a very cool winter scene. So less is more here. Start with this Prussian blue mixed with white. So I'm gonna go a little bit more intense, a little bit bolder here at the top. And then I'm going to actually transition from this Prussian blue into this ultramarine, also mixed in with some white. Taste it, that's okay. And very, very light. So I'm going to first, let's take a look at my canvas. I want my horizon to be a third of the way up. So my horizon's going to be here. So just to give myself an idea of where I'm going to have that, I'm going to draw a line over here, not all the way across because this is an island and it's going to end there. This is a foggy morning lake scene. So you're going to have the mist rising up from the water. Some trees coming out of the mist in the background. So I'm just drawing this almost invisible blue sky. Starting from the top, I'm going to go with a little bit more of this Prussian blue at the top. I have my colors a little bit darker. I'm going to stick that palette in there for a second. I'm going to go to the one with the duller colors on it that I've mixed earlier. So this is one with, there's some of this ultramarine and there's a little bit of black here. So I'm just kind of combine the two, get more of a dull gray blue, add some of that at the top. And I want to keep this canvas fairly damp as I'm working on this scene. So I don't want any hard lines on my paper. It's already starting to dry up here at the bottom. I'm gonna wet my paintbrush and just get a little bit more water going at the bottom here. And I'm just using clean water. I don't have any paint on the paintbrush at this point, just clean water, drawing it down. And then here where the land rises up, maybe we've got some mountains in the distance. So I'm going to start with just the slightest hint of some mountains in the distance. And I'm going to add more water. I don't want all those lines. I don't want the brush strokes. So just there we go. That's it. That's what I want, because there's mist rising, fog rising up from these mountains. So just teasing the colors out of the canvas. Use some more clean water and just re-wet these white areas so we don't wind up with sharp edges. So some of this stays white, some of this stays completely white for this painting, and we have to make sure that we have those white values. So here our mountains are rising in the distance. I want the slightest amount of this purplish, pinkish color in here. Pull some of that out and add that in there. There we go. Okay. So now I want to, whoops, dab. Anything that starts running, you just dab it. Dab your pencil, your brush dry, and just pull that up. Pull that up. There we go. Slight hint of purple. This is a very subtle painting. So now one more step. I want to get a little bit of that same purplish color down here. So I'm going to grab some more of that, but I want it to be deeper. So this is purple mixed with ultramarine, violet mixed with ultramarine, and some black. So that I'm gonna just add some of that on the lake. It's a little bit more purple than I want it to be. Just rinse my brush, get some clean ultramarine on there. There we go. Add some of this ultramarine mixed with white. There we go, and just draw it down, draw it down. I want it to be a little bit purple on this side, but for the most part I want it to be fairly pure blue over here. So maybe this lake is frozen, maybe this is ice. It's glistening, glinty, shiny. It's going to be very reflective, glassy, but it's going to reflect a little bit of this darker hues of the sky. So just draw that down, draw that down. And I want to add a little bit of that Prussian blue on the side over here. Get my brush wet, get a little bit of that going. Test it, that's too much. Get some of it off there. Pull it out from the side. Clean off my brush, get some water, dab it off, and then I'm just gonna draw that out. Draw it into the painting. Broad strokes going across the whole surface here. Okay, I'm happy with those tones for the backdrop, for the background. Maybe one more thing. Just get a little bit of that Prussian blue mixed with the black, test it. Okay with that. That's just gonna be part of my island. There we go. It's too dark. I'm gonna lighten that up. Clean that up a little bit. This is a shadow. It's an island casting a shadow, so it's okay if it's a little dull and a little dark. But I just want to lighten that up just a little bit. There we go. Okay. And because there is some fog over here, I'm gonna pull some of this paint off the canvas again. So I'm gonna dab my kitchen towel, get it wet. And I'm using a kitchen towel instead of tissues because it holds up better, it's sturdier. So just dab, 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 clean water onto the canvas just until I've lifted off some of that paint. Dab, dab, dab. Creating that foggy texture on the painting. Okay. And clean off my broad strokes brush. Put it aside. We're going to be working with a slightly larger brush now. So I'm going to pick my number 8 brush. So I'm gonna get some more water on there. So now we're gonna start to tease out a distant row of trees. So I wanna use a dull color for that. I'm gonna mix some black with some purples, and there's some Prussian blue. I'm actually just gonna let this color dance and mix and become a muddy bluish teal color. And I'm going to start teasing out some trees. They're behind the fog. This is too dark. I want this to be lighter, so more water. So I'm just gonna start teasing out some trees behind the fog. It's okay if they run a little bit. We're not gonna make them perfect. They're not fully visible. This is some distant land there. You can't really see what they are. They're just shapes in the mist, shapes in the distance. So just teasing them out. The bottoms of them are fading away. You can't really see. Probably a pine forest, something on the distant bank there. And then I'm gonna clean off this brush. I'm gonna take this kitchen towel, get it just a little bit damp. I'm just gonna dab, 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 dab. There we go. Just dab that fog over the bottoms of those distant foggy trees, going up over them in some places, drawing that paint down in some places. I'm actually going to put a small amount on my kitchen towel, just kind of go over, just to soften up, feather up that edge. Maybe going to add another layer of these. Dab, dab, dab. So I'm going to go slightly darker if I've got them coming closer towards the viewer. I want them to be slightly darker than the back row. So I'm adding a little bit more purple, add a little bit more of the ultramarine, and a little bit more black. That Prussian blue is a strong color, so make sure that if you're using it, you're being conservative. So maybe this is maybe these are cypress. Maybe they're pine. So just drawing them out, and then my still damp kitchen towel. Just gonna dab the bottoms of those away, turning them into fog. That fog rising up. There we go. I like that. That's good. Creating a good, nice, ethereal scene. I like that. I'm happy with that. So I'm going to rinse this brush off. Now I'm going to go to a very fine brush. I'm going to put away that number 8. I'm going to go to a lining brush. I'm using a number 4 since I'm using a larger canvas. If you've cut this into smaller parts, if you've cut this into quarters or something, you might want to go with a 2 or a 1 or a 0. I got something on the painting up here, so I'm actually just gonna use the kitchen towel and just dab it away. Just find a damp spot on the kitchen towel and just dab it away. Maybe that's just a bird flying there. Okay. So now I'm gonna create an island over here with some trees. So for that, I'm gonna go fairly dark, but not dark dark. So what I'm actually gonna do is I'm gonna use some of my white. And if you're working with a palette, that's fine. You can still mix white over, you can just drag your brush through the white and then drag it through the Prussian blue and mix them up here and do it that way. And your black. I don't have black in this palette, that's why I'm not using the palette today. So I've got some black set up there. I'm gonna add some white there. So I've got some black, I'm gonna add a little bit of white. If you know about color mixing at all, black and white make a gray. So I want this to be a very dark gray, and I'm also going to tinge it with blues. So I set my white up there, put it down, get my brush, damp, blend the black and the white together, and I look at the, it's very dark. You can test it over there. Yeah, that's going to be a good tone. It's just about the right color value. And now, I think we're going to go with some of this Prussian blue mixed in with it. So I'm going to grab some of the strong Prussian blue. There we go. Look at that color. It's like a grayish black teal color. I like that. Maybe just the smallest hint of ultramarine in there. That's it. That's good. Okay. So now I have that color ready. Make sure to get some of it off the brush. You don't want too much paint on the brush. So I like to just kind of mix it in here in the center where my mixing goes on. And then if you're still not sure, then you can always use your tissue, use your kitchen towel to clean off your brush and pull it into a tip. So just roll it on the canvas to get a nice sharp tip. Okay, so now I have this gray color. I'm going to start drawing my island over here. So coming in from the side, like so. Let's land. It gets a little bit less pronounced here on the end. Some of the fog is starting to cover it up. I'm going to go about halfway in using my composition rolls. Dab it out, so I've got about a third of the way in. So this is actually just layer one. We're going to do a couple of layers on the island because this is the focal point of this painting. It's the most pronounced part. So I've got my island, and maybe on this island I've got some, I think this color gray is maybe a bit too dull. I want to add a little bit of this ultramarine blue, and it's okay if you've already started with a color and then you decide to change it. That's fine. You can just change it. There's the play of the colors is going to make it interesting. Okay, so I'm going to add a little bit more color to this. This is a little bit dull on my painting here. Maybe some purple hues. Mix it in with that gray. Okay, so I'm going to tease out some trees. So maybe there's a short one here, maybe a taller one over here, another one here, maybe some babies. Some baby conifers over there and there. This guy is maybe a little bit taller. Okay, get a little bit more water on my brush, sharpen it to an edge, and now you're gonna kind of start doing some fine work here. So be careful that you don't have any paint on your finger if you're gonna lay it on the canvas like this. So we're gonna create some branches for this tree, going out to the sides and up, just very lightly teasing out those branches. Not a lot of perfectionism going on. Light touch here. And I'm just kind of dabbing onto the canvas. You see I'm holding my brush close to the tip now because I'm using it more like a pencil than a brush or a pen. So some spaces are going to be more solid than others. These branches don't go all the way down to the bottom on this tree. Sometimes it helps to decide what kind of tree you're drawing and then looking at pictures of it. I'll put a little bush right here, a little shrub. Another little shrub over here. This nature is messy. It's not perfect. So short little conifer, short little pine tree over here. I think these are probably, they've probably got to be Australian pines if they're wide like this. You can be very specific about what kind of tree it is. It's the wonderful thing about the internet. Back when I was a kid, when I was, my mom enrolled me in art school at a very young age. And when I was in high school doing art, we would use reference pictures. But if you wanted to find references for something, you had to go down to the library. You had to go to the reference section and you had to make photocopies of the pictures that you wanted and then bring them to class with you. Now, with the internet being as wonderful as it is, and your library having so many wonderful resources, you can just come get the pictures that you want and get them on your phone, download them to your phone and have them handy to look at. So I'm just adding some grass in between, some little shrubs or something going up, and I'm just picking colors at random from my pile here. This guy's got a stem but only a few branches at the top. Maybe it's still a baby, so get some wide branches going on there. This one's barely got any. Okay, I'm happy with that. Scraggly little pines growing on this little island here. I'm getting the paint that I was using, the color that I was using, I'm making it a lot thinner, because now we've got to cast some shadows, we've got to cast some reflections. So I want it even thinner than that, so I'm actually going to go and do it over here. And I'm going to go with this slightly bluer, grayer version of it. So there's no rules that says that you have to mix your paint in the little bowls. You might see that I don't do that. So, okay, so some reflections. So reflections are not perfect mirror images. They're going to be longer usually than the actual trees, and they're just kind of rough. So start with a very light touch, and we can add some more. Reflection. So what's happening up top is also happening at the bottom, and it looks like I've got, so my paint wants to run down here, so I'm gonna clean up my brush, and I'm just gonna go grab this little drop here with my dry brush. If you're doing this on a flat surface, which normally you are with watercolors, certainly if you're coming into our loft space, in our maker space, and you're doing your watercolors in here, you'll probably be working on a flat table. But so I can see the difference of the colors. So I've got a lot of purples in here and more grays in here. So I'm gonna go add a little bit of purples in there, but I wanna keep it light. So I'm gonna mix in some of this violet, some of that royal purple, pull it out, keep it very light, and just dab some of it. Oh, that guy's trying to run away from me. Just pull some of it out from the stem, pulling it out to the branches. Just adding a few purples in here because mostly the colors will reflect. They will be slightly different in the bottom in the lake or on the ice versus how you see them against the light behind them. But I think I'm happy with that. I think this looks good. There's some fog rising up from the water. There's fog rising up from the trees. I think what I want to do though is I want to draw that top color down a little bit. And it's never too late. With watercolors, you can always go back if you're using the right paper. So I'm going to go get my brush nice and wet again. So and now I'm only going to wet down, and I'm using clean water and a clean brush. So I'm only going to wet down to this white part. I don't want to go further down. So remember what I said, the water is going to stay where, or the paint's going to stay where the water is. So I get that wet, and now maybe I want to use some of that purplish blue color that I was using down here. Get some of this ultramarine, dab it up here, get some of that gray involved. More ultramarine. There we go. There we go. That's nice and dark. Now I'm just going to draw that color down. Draw that color down. Yeah. There we go. I'm happy with that. And then I think I want some more of this purple down here too. I just want to intensify that. Sometimes you never know. You'd rather want a light touch for a winter scene like this than to overdo it, but you never know when this dries how much the colors are going to dull up. So I'm adding some purple to that color that I was just using, and I'm going to pull that in here, pull it down. Oops, I forgot to wet it. That was my fault. So just add some water and wet it down. I'm going to be careful not to go too much over my reflections here because I am going to smear them up when I do, like I just did. Draw it out. So it's better to do this on the first go around than to try to fix it after the fact, but here we are, we're committed now. So okay, so I added some of that purple. I'm going to go back to my kitchen towel. I like them when they're nice and used, but I'm going to find a good clean spot on it and just dab away where the fog is. Use a clean brush and some clean water to get that area nice and wet again. And just dab away. There we go. I think that's good. Okay, so my painting has had some time to dry, and now I'm gonna pull the edges off and reveal the final result. So pulling the masking tape away from the picture, slowly, patiently. Patience is a virtue. All good things come to those who wait. And nothing worth doing is worth rushing. Something like that. Slowly pulling it away. Very subtle colors in this one. So I want to start from the bottom. Very cool winter hues. Kind of makes you want to curl up next to a fire with a good book. Slowly peeling it off. And voila! Not a whole lot of warping going on. My winter scene is all done, all ready, and I'm going to frame it and hang it up. Thanks for watching. This has been The Zen of Painting with me, Sarah, and Pasco County Libraries.